States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Mattson?
Here.
Commissioner Hughes?
Here.
Commissioner Christian?
Here.
Vice Chair Artis?
Present.
And Chair McClinton Horner.
Here.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment this evening?
If there's anyone in the audience that would like to make a public comment, please come to the podium.
Not this guy.
If there's anyone in Zoom that would like to make a public comment. Okay, we do have one person. Hi, Kara. Can you hear us?
Hi.
Can you please state your name for the record?
Yep. Hi, this is Kara Werner with the Napa County Bicycle Coalition. Good evening. I wanted to just raise a quick question for the commissioners, and I know this isn't on the agenda, so if you're unable to talk about it tonight, please feel free to email us. But we are working with Parks and Recs on where to put the Energizer station in American Canyon. And last year, we had it in front of, like, very close to American Canyon High School. I'm sorry, I should back up. This is the Energizer station for Bike and Work to School Day. It's where we give out encouragement items to folks who are commuting in the morning. And we're out there from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. But American Canyon High School has their own station this year, and we're trying not to duplicate. So our question is, where would you suggest we position the station, given that we really want to try to reach adult commuters with this station in mind? And I hope it's okay to share that I did hear from Commissioner McClinton Horner. So I have some idea there, and of course we have some idea also, just, you know, from our time there and whatnot. But we'd love more input is all I just came to say. And so if there is time to chat about it, I'd love to hear it. And again, some of you have my email. If not, you can reach us through info@napabike.org, which can be found at our website. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kara.
That's all. Okay.
That is all the public comment we have, Chair. Thank you.
And are there any agenda changes?
Madam Chair, yes, we do have one agenda change for this evening. We are going to move business item number 2 to our June 7th meeting.
Okay. Could I get a motion, please? Anybody?
I'll move to
Wait,
postpone.
Can I ask a question first? Does this affect the city council looking at it later, or are we looking at it far enough ahead that it's not an issue?
So the June 7th meeting, it shouldn't impact. I mean, the city council approves all of our capital improvement program projects, and that's going to be part of the budget process this year. This is more of an information item to this commission on what projects you're going to see in fiscal year 23-24 that are going to pertain around sustainability, open space, or anything that would pertain to this commission. So there will be no action on this.
We're not giving them input on what we want to see. It's more for information on how we could get involved.
It's a review and comment of the projects that are going to be presented to council as part of the CIP program for fiscal year 23-24.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So if it had been on the agenda, you would do a presentation of what projects were going to be. Well, I mean, to me, it's a huge undertaking to update the whole Parks and Community Services Master Plan. I mean, that's
Oh, wait,
a
Barry,
long
we're
process.
talking about we're about to move on changing the agenda to move this June.
Item 2 of your business. So this evening, Erica Almond-Smithies was supposed to be here to give you an update on the capital improvement program projects that are scheduled that we have planned for fiscal year 23-24 that's going to go to council as part of the budget process. And we were going to present to you of those projects, which ones would this commission have the opportunity to review and comment during that fiscal year. There would be no action taken this evening. It's more of an informational item.
Okay.
And so we're going to move it to June.
Okay, I was confused because the handout you gave us talked about, it says postponed, the Parks and Community Services Master Plan.
That's going to be for business item number 3 when we talk about our work plan for fiscal year 23-24. The handout that I gave you that says draft on it,
Yeah,
that's for business item 3.
but that won't be tonight.
It will be.
This will be that, yes, that will be tonight.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to move item 2 to June.
Thank you. Would anybody like to second? I'll second that motion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mattson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Vice Chair Artis,
Yes.
and Chair McClinton Horner.
Yes.
Thank you.
And on the consent calendar, we have meeting minutes of April 5th, 2023. Recommendation is to approve the April 5th, 2023 OSATS meeting minutes. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the April 5th, 2023 OSATS meeting minutes.
Second?
I'll second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Mattson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Vice Chair Artis,
Yes.
and Chair McClinton Horner.
Yes.
Thank you.
So our item of business tonight is the draft fiscal year 2023-2024 annual work plan for the Open Space, Active Transportation, and Sustainability Commission. The recommendation is to draft fiscal year 2023 work plan for the Open Space, Active Transportation, and Sustainability Commission for consideration by the City Council at the June 2023 council meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, this evening we are starting this conversation and discussion of drafting our work plan for the upcoming fiscal year of 23-24. This work plan would go to council. The plan is to have it go to council in a draft form for a joint special meeting with City Council on June 20th. Before you this evening, we do have a draft of what the recommendations that staff is recommending as part of that work plan of what we should be considering for next year, and that we think that council would be interested in what we should be focusing on pertaining to open space, active transportation, and sustainability. So as we look at the draft, we have on this list, we have item 1, which is a rollover from last work plan to this work plan, which is the update to the Newell Management Plan. Item 2, which is the update to the Parks and Community Services Master Plan. This was recently discussed with PCS at the last meeting. We are not in the position to update that plan right now. We want to wait for the city's general plan to be completed and updated. And when I say that, we don't need to wait for the EIR to be filed. We just want to have the overall bones and foundation of the general plan, because that really is going to shape our master plan for Parks and Recreation, because that is in general, we need to have our plan aligned with the city's general plan. It's not two separate documents. They really should be coinciding with each other. So at this time, the recommendation with PCS and what they've agreed to is waiting for the general plan to be somewhat completed. Again, not having the EIR filed, because that has nothing to do with our master plan. We don't need an EIR for our master plan. But just again, have the bones in place, so that way we can have somewhat of an idea of the direction of the city and what City Council wants us as a city of where we're going. And we're looking around December 2023 of when we think that general plan is going to be somewhat a guiding document for us to be able to start that process. So we're going to postpone this number 2. Number 3 is the fiscal year 23-24 capital improvement program pertaining to open space, active transportation, and sustainability projects. That was a bit of a discussion of what we were planning this evening, which was about the projects that were planned for fiscal year 23-24. And keeping that on there because a lot of those projects, again, you have this body would have the opportunity to review and comment on those projects. Number 4 is a rollover from last work plan, which is the trail accessibility and maintenance standards. Number 5 is a rollover from last work plan, which is the review and comment on the Eco Center use permit. Number 6 is a rollover from last work plan, which is the review and comment on the design documents for the new open space trail project. Number 7 is the review and comment of the outdoor education project down at the wetlands. Number 8 is the sustainability interim climate action plan, and the idea that council would really like to see this body hold some sort of public engagement over the next year and really get a sense of what sustainability means or climate action means to this community, and focus on maybe 2 to 3 low-hanging initiatives. And then number 9 is the joint meeting with Planning Commission to discuss development standards for active transportation projects. So those are our recommendations, and we can go ahead and start the conversation of anything you want to add or anything you don't like that you see in front of you.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just wondering what would be the different rationale for postponing the Parks and Community Services Master Plan, but going ahead with the open space and transportation, because it seems like the rationale would apply to both if we're waiting for City Council to do its general plan or get the bones. Why would the rationale be different between the two? Is there something specific to the two that are different?
I don't really know if I know the answer to that, Barry. I know when I'm looking at the Newell Management Plan right now, it is a very useful document. It talks about the history of Newell open space, but it doesn't really talk about the maintenance standards. I think when we last talked as a body before we were formed into OSATS, as part of the OSAT committee, we talked about we wanted to focus on maintenance, forest management, grazing, all the things that are happening up there that aren't currently in that plan. And I think that really I think we're able to do that without needing the general plan to do a lot of that work, because it's really how do we maintain Newell open space? Like, what is the vision for Newell open space versus the vision for the overall parks and recreation for this entire city? I think this is more of an isolated approach. It's not creating a master plan, because when we talk about a master plan for parks and recreation, it's going to include open space. It's going to include our pocket parks, our urbanized parks. It's going to include recreation programs and services that are provided by the department. It's more broad versus more specialized, specific to Newell open space. So I think keeping the Newell management plan would be okay. I don't think we would necessarily need the general plan to be able to complete that update.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as I look at it now, the Newell Management Plan is just Newell. It's not our entire open space master plan. It's
Correct.
just, yeah, so that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair Mattson?
I'm not chair anymore.
Ah, you got me. Commissioner Mattson.
Honorary.
No,
The chair all the time.
I had a question. I have a question on a couple of things, but since Barry started with Newell, I wanted to ask you, what's the status of it? Do we have staff support set aside and money set aside? And what's the timeline for Newell management plans?
Well, so the whole point of a work plan is putting this together as a body and expressing our interest to council of what this body wants to focus on within the purview of why this commission was established. This commission was brought together to focus on 3 major areas: open space, active transportation, and sustainability. And the work plan is the work that this commission's going to do over the next 12 months. And when we take this to council and we say, okay, council, here's our work plan, they are going to be the ones that are going to review it and allocate the appropriate resources to be able to do what's on the work plan. I don't know the timeline. It could take a year. It could take 2 years. It really just depends on what other initiatives and focuses we have on the work plan. And, when we look at the sustainability interim action, climate action plan, I know that that's going to be a longer process than 2 months. I mean, we're talking about workshops and community engagement over a period of time to really understand what this community wants and what climate action means to this community, and the legwork of what it's going to take to fully understand what this community understands or wants, and then identifying 2 to 3 items. I don't see that happening by July. To really get a full sense of what this community wants, there is going to be some groundwork that this commission's going to have to do, and that may take a year, that may take 2 years, and that's okay. I don't think there's a specific timeline. As you can see, there's 4 items that are on this work plan that is a rollover from last year. Just because we didn't get it done doesn't mean that you weren't working hard. It just means that it's just not completed yet. We need more time. And so I don't think so much the focus is of how long is it going to take. It's more of, is this in the purview of what this commission is asked to do? And is council going to support this work plan as a body for this commission to focus on? And then we can prioritize how we want to approach each of these items within the year.
Okay, the reason why I asked about money and staff support is the Newell Management Plan has been on our work plan for probably 4 years. And I thought at one point council had allocated money to it. So that's why I'm asking, is that money still there?
I don't
Maybe it's not there anymore.
I don't recall that
Reabsorbed.
being.
It's gone.
Well, again, I think the work plan that OSAC had put together wasn't a work plan that was adopted by council. That work plan was adopted by the committee that was never communicated to council.
Well, let's not go there, okay?
I'm not going there. I'm just talking
Please
about
don't go
history
there.
because you said that if there's money, and I'm just
Yeah.
there. I don't recall there being money. If it's not in our current budget now. So if we want to have this be a focus and initiative for next year, we can definitely put it on that and see if council would like us to focus on that.
Yeah, I guess my take on this item is that it could require money. Could require a heavy lift from the commissioners. And so I guess I'd like to know what staff's perception of what that might be for that item. Some of these other things are pretty straightforward in terms of, I can imagine what the interactions are going to be. I'm not including sustainability. I think that's a whole another thing to figure out. But in terms of the Newell Management Plan, we kind of know what might need to be done. And I would think council would want to ask, okay, so how much do you think it's going to cost? And so I'm trying to think ahead to that question. And so that's why I've been asking, is there staff time set aside or a consultant? What does staff envision? And it sounds like that thought process may have been gone through, but I don't know.
Yeah, so Newell Open Space is a preserve. We work with the Napa Land Trust. I've been in conversation with Lena, who is our rep over there, and she has provided some valuable resources to us. So there are several ways of doing this. We can either have it all be done by staff with the help of the Land Trust. We could go half staff, half consultant, or can go full consultant. It really just depends on how we want to take that approach. And but I don't have a definite answer in regards to what approach we're going to take. But there are resources out there that we can definitely reference and look into.
Okay, so it sounds like on this item, it's us deciding, do we think this is an important thing to achieve this year? That's really the level
Yes.
of, okay, thank you. I also wanted to talk about sustainability a little bit, is that I found last month's meeting a bit hard to get my hands around. I felt like there were a lot of ideas out there. And I'm hoping as part of this item that we understand from staff what the city sustainability activities are going on for our city. So I think we have two things. We have the city as an entity and we have the residents in the community. And I think that we're not sure about what the city staff is doing. And I think that will help kind of inform how we approach this.
You mean like a progress on each of the items and where we're at?
Yeah, I think that there's some initiatives, like I'm thinking about during the drought, there were initiatives the city pushed forward. And it may be that there's other sustainability issues that the city is already working with to get out to the community. It'll help us kind of inform us in terms of, oh, good, we're already working in this area. Maybe we can build onto that.
Right.
Versus going over to, this idea over here that's not related to what already is going on.
Yeah.
And the county too. There's private initiatives and the county is doing stuff too.
Mhm. Yeah, I figure this is a big item. Bike-friendly community, is that part of 9 or is that different? So those are my 3 comments.
I have
right
the
now.
same note.
Okay, that's it for me.
Ally, what do you think about that? The bicycle-friendly community? Would that be a separate item, or would that be a part of item 9?
So what I was getting out of my understanding when I was talking to Jason, the city manager, it was understanding the development standards of what we have for, that's part of the planning commission, like what they are considering, that would fall under the active transportation. Like how many bike racks do we require our businesses to put in when they are building a new location, things like that. I think the bike-friendly community might be a separate initiative, outside of number 9, because number 9 is really having a joint special meeting pertaining to the development standards for for active transportation. So it's the development standards versus, what is it going to take for us to become a bike-friendly community? Because I think that's a separate initiative.
Yeah.
So if we want to add that could be consideration as well.
I would like to propose adding that. I've gone through the application packet, and it really takes a lot of different hands and departments to get that put together. And I think we should start on that sooner than later. Some of the pieces are going to be easier. Some of them are going to require actions from the Planning Commission, and maybe an ordinance or something too.
Yeah, and I believe ordinances take time. So,
Yeah.
so if you're going to change or alter or add, that's gonna take some time. So.
Is it more efficient or cost saving to combine several ordinances at one time?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I can find out for you though.
Yeah. I was thinking that if there's work that we do with the Planning Commission that changes the number of bike racks or EV stations at a development, then maybe some of the bicycle-friendly community items could be kind of packaged in there together if it's a benefit for the for staff and city time and money and all that. Yeah.
I can definitely look into that.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Yeah, so we're commenting on these items in the
work
plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just say, I'm really big on the Newell Management Plan because it really touches on a lot of things here. It touches on trail construction, that making the ADA path up to the barn and then possibly up to the picnic. It could touch on tree planting and restoration efforts, which is part of climate sustainability. Trail maintenance, on how we maintain the trails so that we work towards getting trails that are year-round trails, so that when it rains, it drains properly and we don't have a soggy mess for 3 months and you can't use it till it dries out. And when trees fall down. Cattle management, which is part of that. Wildlife management, the wildlife cameras, and then fire safe considerations too. So are we planting trees and vegetation that we can maintain in a fire safe way? So all those different things. And that's a large part of what we were originally, the Open Space Committee was Newell Open Space in the wetlands. So a lot of that stuff hasn't been taken care of, and I think that updating the management plan is an opportunity to work on all those issues. So to me, that's a really big one.
Yeah. Is number 4 part of number 1? trail accessibility and maintenance standards. Is that part of the update of the Newell Management Plan?
They're two separate items because we have trails at the wetlands, we have trails throughout American Canyon. So that's why we separated them. But you can have the same standards in both areas. So if you want to make sure that your standards are consistent, I think it might be best to have that language speak to each other
Right.
in the management plan, and then
It would
also
probably be different.
Number 6 also, it's review and comment on design documents for new open space trail project. So that's a big part of new open space. So I mean, I could see you could combine that too. And that's part of what I was talking about with all these other issues that all fall into that, where we could make some progress.
At
I
number
think that,
6,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I think that might be a typo on my part, Barry. I apologize. That's actually pertaining to the parking lot, I believe.
the ADA accessibility and parking lot.
This is the parking lot.
And the trail through the Valley Trail and everything? that
Yeah,
whole
it's the
project?
original project that we've been working on for a while. That was supposed to be carryover. I apologize. That is my typo. That's supposed to be the parking lot, the new open space parking lot.
But it's also the trail, right? Not just the parking lot, right?
It was the original, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm just calling it the new open space. I don't know the technical name of it, but it's the parking lot and the project that we were working on with the 60%
Conservation
designed.
Grant Fund.
Yeah, Habitat Conservation Grant. Yeah,
It's a
that's
subset though, right? Because it was also, that whole project is the,
Yes, so it included the parking lot and the trail up to the picnic benches.
Picnic area, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. It's a new open space parking lot and trail improvement project. Thank you, Liz. I missed the parking lot.
I just have a question too. Maybe it's the wrong time to dive too deep into it. But in terms of that, I'm just wondering whether that's going forward, because I had that thing about the New Hampshire Horse Council recommendations for horse trailer parking. And I don't know where the project is in terms of, are we actually going to do that? So I don't know what the specific, but if we are going to do it, then I'd like to submit that information from the Horse Council. But if we're not going to do an equestrian parking, then that's a moot point. And I don't know which we're doing.
At this time, I'm not able to answer that question. So right now, we're at 60% design drawings, the same spot that we were last time. And so keeping it on the work plan is to progress that project moving forward.
Okay.
Barry, I think it might be a good idea to provide that information to Erica.
Yeah,
She's-
I'll send it in and then ask them to send it out to all you.
I have a question about item 5, the trail accessibility and maintenance standards in pertaining to Newell. I guess, so you mentioned, staff resources and resources from is it Conservation Management, Lena?
Yeah, the
Where are they?
land trust, right?
Land Trust, sorry, Land Trust. Is there any consideration for volunteers to go up there? And because on all the East Bay trails, they do it. Napa has a program for
Absolutely.
Open
We love
Space
our
District.
volunteers.
volunteers. Okay.
Absolutely. We actually just did Ridge Trail Day back in November, and that was we improved, I would say, a great section of the upper portion of the Newell Trail during that project, and those were all volunteers. So yes, we love our volunteers. They do amazing work.
Who heads that up?
Our department does.
Okay,
And then we
so
work,
Parks and-
yeah, we partner with the Ridge Trail. It's a Bay Area initiative.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Any other commissioner comments?
I just have Nance or Commissioner Mattson, thanks for asking the question about the resources. But I also just wanted to revisit when you were talking about the sustainability climate action plan, because I think that, at least I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Director Ikeda, but as we put some of these on here or think about that, then we're going to be able to bring what was presented last time, the list of recommendations, be able to account for what the city has already done, and then that feeds into what we're going to then potentially work on or inform what we would work on. So if that is correct, then I'm good to go.
Yeah, it is. And you bring up, those are some really good points that have been brought up by this commission. The city is doing a lot of great things with the 30, I believe it was either 32 or 36 items that were identified within that report. And there's a lot of things that are already being done, and it would be nice to know what we're doing and then where we should focus. And then the other initiative of the reason why we are transferring, we did that handoff last meeting from the that ad hoc committee to this commission, is to really engage and see what this community wants, because that was a Napa County initiative, and it's great to have the Napa County's perspective. But what is the perspective of American Canyon? What does climate action mean to our residents, and what do they want us to focus on? And having that feedback would be really helpful for council to have that information to make decisions moving forward. And so their idea is to have this body be that face of sustainability and engage and do that public process and get that information and really understand what climate action and sustainability means to the community.
How are we going to come up with questions or, kind of a quick couple-minute briefing if we're in a conversation with somebody? Is that something that we want to talk about and discuss, kind of a plan of action for something like that?
Yeah, not at this meeting. This is more of just planning your work plan for next year. That would be part of that process. Okay. What is the public engagement process look like? What are the workshops that you're interested in doing? Or, how can you interact? Like, what are some events where you can get the most face time with our community, right? Like, that would be something that we would want to talk about, more of like strategy and how to get in front of the public and survey as many people as we can to get cast a wide net on perspective and what they want us to focus on. So absolutely, that's why I put on here as like item A, like workshops and community engagement, because that is part of the initiative of what that item is.
Okay, any more comments?
Yes, I got one more. Again, going back to the update, the Newell Management Plan. I'm new, not new to American Canyon, but new to this committee. Is there a plan, a past plan or current plan that I can review just to kind of familiarize myself with what we've been doing?
Yeah, we actually have a plan. I can email that to all of you so that way you can review it and see where it's at. Like I said, there's a lot of great information in there. It talks about a lot of the history of how we got Newell, the type of soil, the type of protected habitat and species. Again, that's all great information that I think that could be carried over. The pieces, to Barry's point, there are some pieces that are missing because we've evolved since then. And there's, how do we maintain the trails? What are our trail standards? What is our fire management or forest management plan? How do we, grazing, we now have a new grazing lease with the Azevedos. Like, what does that look like? What are our standards for that? So things like that, I think that should be included in regards to the Newell management plan.
Can I just add that plan was created by a grant from the Coastal Conservancy when the property was donated. And it's almost like an EIR study. And we've had it since 1999, kind of day one. I think a lot of us are familiar with it. We've received it a lot.
It's really well written. It's
very
well written.
A lot of good stuff, but there's a lot of it's outdated too. It's a lot of it's and so it really needs to be updated.
I think some of the species have changed, rotated around.
Yeah, we went, just to piggyback on that, Robin Myers and I went through the whole document and kind of figured out what needed to be updated. And I don't know where our notes are from that, but you know, when we get to this point, I'll see if I can find them. I have a question for you in terms of future open space. I know there's conversations about some potential, would that possibly be happening during the next fiscal year, or is it further out?
Not that I'm aware of. I didn't get that indication from the city manager today.
Okay.
So what's being proposed to you this evening is our recommendations for this next year.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Can I just say that with all the talk about the warehouses and the Hess property and the possible annexation of up around Watson Ranch and the highways, I don't really have a well-formed thought or plan on this, but it just seems to me that I don't know what the city's going to look like in 10 years in terms of open space. I know we have Newell, I know we have the wetlands, but I don't know if we've ever sat down and said, okay, when the city's all built out, what's it going to look like? What kind of open space is going to be within the city? And I'm wondering if that might be something that would maybe fall to us to look at that long term. Maybe the city's already doing it in its general plan update. But as you keep building more warehouses and it shrinks, then at some point you have the prospect of driving up to Napa in this narrow corridor along 29, just all on the left-hand side, the west side. Right now it's like that, vacant lots, construction places, different stores and that. On the right, it's all open space. And so I don't know if we've ever sat down and looked at it. I know years ago when we went to LAFCO to try to get the ruins annexed into the city, we were talking about we would be grown out at 26,000. That was what our max is. And I think it's much, much more than that now. So I don't know if that's a purview of this commission to look at that in
Barry,
terms of.
Are you proposing a work plan item?
I don't know if it's a work plan item or an item for future development, but I mean, it could be a work plan item, but it's more of a long-term thing. It's a vision for the city going forward in terms of what are we going to look like? Are we going to have all buildings and all apartments and warehouses, or are we going to preserve places within the city? And so the current debate with warehouses, and there's, with the Giovannoni project, there's people suing the city, and there's a lot of contentious debate about it. It just seems to me at some point maybe that would be something we could do to sit down and look at that. I don't know if city council would want to do that, or if that's, but I'm kind of throwing it out there for discussion, I guess. It's the best I got, sorry.
I think that's probably a general plan and zoning.
Correct.
And that's something that I think that we'd want to, as a private citizen, speak at planning commission meetings and get involved in the general plan process, like when there's workshops, and make sure our voice is heard that way.
Correct.
You don't think it'd be something for the committee to sit down and think about, or in terms of making a recommendation, it would be better to leave it to the city as part of their general plan process?
Well, it's Barry, it's not being left to the city. You as a member of the public have a voice,
Yeah,
and
I
there
know that.
is a process for you to be a part of that conversation and discussion. A lot of these projects are taking place in areas that are zoned for those projects, and it's city council's responsibility to understand that. And there is a plan that the general plan is pretty much mapped out the entire city of what parcels of property are supposed to be used for what, and they are going through the process of updating that. And they're, to Tara's point, or excuse me, the chair's point, there is a process for you to even speak there. Tonight we're focusing on our work plan of what we need to do as this body and as commissioners for this body. If you have concerns outside of this body as a member of the public, I highly encourage you to speak up in public forum as a member of this community and voice your opinion in the many avenues that the city provides about some of the concerns that you may have about open space and making sure that we're preserving them and your voice is heard.
But it would be within the committee's purview to to sit down as a committee and discuss it, or absolutely not? We're not allowed to talk about
So
that?
when it comes about projects that are going before council, that's where there's that point where you have the review and comment. That's how you're used when it comes to projects that are pertaining to your purview. And that would be like open space, active transportation, and sustainability for projects that are being planned. So for fiscal year 23-24, we have, for instance, the North Slough Restoration, Reclamation, and Recreation Access. That's the Measure AA grant that's taking place down at the wetlands. Like that would be a project when it comes to fruition where we've gotten through all of the stuff all the studies and everything that we need to do before we can actually bring a project before council. It would come here, you would review and comment on it, and then it would go to council. But talking about the development of land and things like that would be, it's not as broad as that. And that's more part of the general plan. That's more of a bigger process, community engagement, and you as a community member can attend council meetings and express your opinion that way.
I'd like to take a pause for a moment. I forgot to ask for public comment. So I'd like to get some public comment, and we can come back if we have any more commissioner comments.
Sure. We do have one person in the Zoom audience that would like to make a public comment. Kara, can you state your name again for the record?
Yep. Hi, this is Kara Werner with the Bike Coalition.
Thank you.
And to comment on the work plan. First, I didn't see the work plan in the agenda packet, so I'm at a bit of a disadvantage. I would think that would be in there. Maybe I missed it, but it looked like only last year's, and I'm hearing items that I didn't know would be on it. But that being said, in the ordinance, it talks about reviewing CIP designs, not just a list of projects, but actual street designs. And so I would love to see that included in the work plan. I think other advisory committees and commissions have given a lot of benefit to the city by being able to see those designs and give input. And while I'm again hearing that council would like this group to be a bit of like a public polling type of group about sustainability issues, when I look at the ordinance, the phrase that's repeated over and over is input on plans and policy. This commission is to give input on plans and policies. And so focusing on that primarily seems to be most in line with the ordinance. And I think also, given the Brown Act and other things, probably structurally what this committee would be best at doing. And then we would absolutely support looking at the bicycle friendly communities designation. Be great to get some healthy competition going with the city of Napa. You have such a wonderful public works lead here in Director Almond Smithies. So I'd love to, that would be really fantastic. And then finally, I'm wondering about the order of these things. I can't see their numbering or whatnot, but it's been some time since this committee, I think, has given any input on active transportation planning. So bumping that up, I think, would be appropriate. And also leaving an item that says something along the lines of, hey, we want to be able to address things as they come up too. So, a work plan is great, but if the city sticks strictly to the work plan, then there isn't going to be that room for items that come up based on emergencies, opportunities, and other things. And I know this committee has been asked to weigh in on things like that from time to time. So I think a placeholder work plan item around things that come up could be beneficial. Thank you so much for considering my input.
Thank you, Kara.
Okay, Nance.
I just wanted to say something about what Barry talked about. Oops, sorry. Just wanted to say something about what Barry said in terms of looking at the vision for the city. At times we have, as a community, looked at the vision for the city, and there's times that Open Space as a committee had representatives on working groups. So I would imagine, it sounds like there's definitely interest. If that process comes up again, we would want to be represented. And maybe that, does that help you, Barry?
Yeah, I just would like to know that the city's looking at this, and if they're not, then I'd like us to push them, or me, or individually, to push the city to look at it, because once it's all built out, it's built out. And so I want to see some good planning, and I have to take a good look at the city's general plan, and maybe it's all in there already. I haven't really taken a close look, but I know we didn't put any money away to purchase Newell Preserve. It was given to us. We were kind of lucky that way. And we didn't put any money into purchasing, well, Mark Joseph as city manager got a wonderful grant for us to get that. But there was a restoration project by Fish and Game to restore the salt ponds, and that's what helped us get public access to the river. The city didn't really initiate those. And so I think that I'm wondering if there's any more to be done. We're great, we have Newell, great, we have the wetlands, but I'm wondering if there's more to be done in the middle of the city, and whether we need to or would want to initiate that discussion if the city's not already having it. So that was my purpose. So yeah, that helps a little bit, but I don't know if it quite does it if we're not allowed to talk about it as a community, as a committee, to share our thoughts.
Don't we have Chair Mattson and artists appointed to the general plan? Like a subcommittee?
Yes, we were both appointed to the subcommittee for the general plan and the Parks and Master Plan. The general plan recreation and parks part, as well as the Parks Master Plan.
Okay, that's still ongoing.
But I don't know if we're still appointed to that. Because now we're a commission, not a committee. So I would think that whatever we were as committee members has now gone away.
What do you think about that?
Excuse me, Chair, are we moving on from public comment?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make a public comment before we move forward? Thank you.
Yes, I'm Mark Joseph, speaking as a citizen. And so I'd like to just make a couple of comments. To Barry's concern, it would seem to me that when the general plan is coming back for review, that would be the opportunity to weigh in, either as a commission or as a citizen, to say, hey, there ought to be more consideration of open space. And arguably that could be folded into the updating of the PCS master plan, even though it's more parks than open space. Again, an opportunity to get your foot in the door to argue a more broader view of open space and recreational areas. So that's my 2 cents worth on that.
Mark, so the timeline, they're working on the general plan now, but the draft plans, or the comments are already in for it right now, right? So we have...
That I'm not 100% sure. I'm just throwing it out as there's opportunities to inject yourself, and that's where I would go with that.
That makes me happy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then in general on the priority setting, I think it's important to identify these 10 or so priorities and figure out which ones are critical. But as Commissioner Mattson pointed out, if there isn't some kind of an understanding of cost, without the resources, this is just a list of items, and they'll look the same next year and the year after. So my suggestion would be to identify what it would take to make them happen, either in terms of staff time or volunteers or money for a consultant. Because as a council, you need to be in a position to say, here's our work plan, and it's going to translate into one full-time body or $500,000 in consulting fees or a boatload of volunteers, so that when the council's weighing it, they're going to say, well, I'm not going to give you any of the staffing, I'll give you half the money, and that's all you got to work with. What can you get done with that? And so to me, without some kind of a cost element, be it bodies, dollars, or volunteers, it's hard to really come up with a work plan that's viable. And in my mind, that's the whole point of a work plan, is to get that done. Sometimes if you don't apply resources, it's essentially a list of fun things that everybody will say, yeah, I'd like to see that happen. But it isn't going to happen because there's no resources to make it happen. The last comment relates to sustainability. Cara makes a good point about whether it's truly the role of this commission to be a public hearing body. I suspect there probably isn't anything illegal about you having a public hearing to get input, so I think you're safe there. But I'd like to throw a little bit of a nuance out, that part of your role in getting public input is also testing the waters to see how far you can go. For example, advocating that we turn off the lights more often, I don't think you're going to get a lot of people saying that's over the top. Advocating that we all become vegans because there's clear evidence that shows a smaller greenhouse gas footprint, that's a bigger one. And in my mind, those are the kinds of things you need to test. How far should we be pushing the envelope before we get so much public pushback that we all reconsider whether we're going to be around at the next election? So that would be my suggestion as far as an objective behind all that public input, testing how far you can go. And in that regard, the other part, the quick and easy stuff, things that are probably everybody's on board, but we just need to be prodded into doing, is kind of the other half of the equation. Getting that dashboard of information lined up and set in motion. Figuring out how to get things happening. Things that are quick and easy to do, but need to be done, and you guys are the ones assigned to work on it. So those are my comments in general. Otherwise, a good-looking plan, and I hope to see it get all finished up in 12 months or less.
I have a question for you, private citizen, Mark Joseph. To your point, identifying the costs associated with these, we don't really have, I don't feel like I don't have that expertise to identify that. Is that something that you'd suggest that we request staff to do when proposing a work plan?
It would seem to me, I mean, somebody's got to figure out what it's going to entail. And certainly staff can figure out how much time they would have to devote to it. And my guess is they don't have all that time. So that's why, I think somebody has to be the expert here. And staff is the best one, at least to identify what's a ballpark estimate. Because otherwise we'll all sit around saying, oh, I think it should be done for 20 cents, and then be surprised when that's not realistic. But that's a good question, because somebody's got to figure out what a good ballpark cost is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's all our public comment.
Thank you. Okay, so another thing that Kara was talking about, having that open line item when things do come up. It seems like we've already been tested on that. There's things going on in the community currently that I'm not sure how we should handle that.
So as a reminder, if something comes up in the community and your work plan is already set, you as a body would need to come together and figure out what you're going to take off of your work plan in replace of that, and then it needs to go to council for approval. That's the process. We don't have just a blanket item, because then we get into kind of the world of where we were versus where we're trying to be.
And how do we comment on policy and projects as they come up that weren't already identified in the plan? I mean, is the same kind of thing?
Yeah, so if it pertains to this body, let's just say like this last year, we had, what project came up? Let's just say an example. We get this amazing grant to do something, and we feel that we have staff time to do it, and it's a project that we want to add. We would we would need to, get it approved by council because it has to be added to the CIP, but then it would also need to go to this body for review and comment as well. And so if it pertains to the scope of the commission, because it depends on which commission it's going to go to. Sometimes it goes to PCS, sometimes it comes to you. So that would be the process. Sometimes projects do come up, they do bubble up on city staff of like Napa Cove. We weren't planning on putting a park at Napa Cove because of the apartments. Well, now you're going to see that as being a project for fiscal year 23-24 as a new project. It wasn't originally in the 5-year CIP that was approved last June, but you're going to see it in this CIP coming up. And so that is a project that PCS we'll have the opportunity to review and comment on. So that would be an example of a potential of a project could happen, and that would be the process.
What about an item that maybe is currently open space, zoned for agriculture, being proposed to change to industrial?
I would think that would go to planning first because you're changing a zoning. That would be a planning first and foremost, and then I believe I'm not quite sure the proper process. But if you're changing a zoning, then it would absolutely need to go to planning first because it pertains to them first and foremost. But I can definitely look into that of what that process looks like officially.
Thank you.
I think we, in the past, when there have been, I remember reviewing zoning and providing input to planning, so hopefully they'll loop us in.
And that is part on the work plan is number 9, like understanding, development standards for active transportation projects. We could maybe broaden that and have open space projects if that is something that would even happen, but I would have to run that by the city manager and see if that would even be the process.
Thank you. Barry?
Yeah, I have a comment on that. Years ago when Mark Joseph was city manager, somehow was it John Wankum that came up with this idea that, hey, we can put in a grant request to purchase how many acres of wetlands? 400 acres of wetlands. And he did that. We didn't have an open space committee then, but that was a city manager's initiative to just put in for this grant. And it's really, my opinion, one of the coolest things that happened to the city because that got us Clark Ranch. It helped get us the wetlands trails and all that. And I would hate to set up a process in our city whereby that cannot happen, where this individual initiative by a city manager or a public works director to do something really amazing. Or the other thing is that the Newell Preserve is, hey, I want to donate this preserve to the city. I got to do it by the end of the year because the tax breaks expire then. So I just wouldn't want to set ourselves in a box and not be able to take advantage of two things that historically were really amazing, in my opinion, for the city.
Okay, any more comments? I think you have some good information and some questions. I lost my place. Hold on. And
Don't we need to approve the work plan? No. So we're adding bike-friendly community to it?
I don't think so. What I've heard is we want to keep the update to Newell management plan. We want to keep the fiscal year 23-24 capital improvement program pertaining to open space, active transportation, and sustainability projects. We need to keep the review and comment of the Eco Center use permit on there. That needs to stay. The review and comment on the Newell open space parking lot and trail improvement project needs to stay. Review and comment on the outdoor education project needs to stay because that's going to be happening next year. And then the sustainability interim climate action plan with workshops and public engagement, and then addressing 2 to 3 items. And then I am recommending that we keep the joint meeting with the Planning Commission to understand and discuss the development standards for active transportation. Do we have a consensus on the trail accessibility maintenance standards?
Can you give me a little more background on what that entails?
Well, right now we don't have any maintenance standards for our trails, first and foremost, and I think that that should be part of this discussion. Is how do we maintain our trails? What is a maintained trail look like? the different types of trails that we have. Like Newell is a dirt trail. What is the maintenance standards on that? We have the wetlands trail. That is I'm calling it a decomposed granite. I believe there's a different term for the type of material that's out there, but it's very similar. That's that type of trail. And then also a portion of the trail is gravel. How do you maintain those? What is the maintenance process? Trail accessibility. Have we looked at all of our trails and are they accessible? Do they all connect? I know that there's portion of the trails that there's been some initiatives of trying to connect certain trails, and what does that look like? So that's what I'm thinking about it. Is that what you all are thinking, or is there a different thought with that?
I'm thinking the trail accessibility and maintenance standards for Newell would fall under the Newell Management Plan, and I don't know if the other parts would fall under the bike plan. I would think in our the city's bike plan, we should have maintenance standards for accessibility and maintenance. That, to me, that seems like part of a bike plan. I don't know if it's in there or not, but I mean, you could split that off, the bike plan for one and the Newell plan, and then we wouldn't be looking at it here in a global way.
But
we
not
have
every
the
trail
wetlands
is a
trails.
bike. Not every trail is a bike trail.
We have wetlands trails, we have neighborhood paths.
I think all the trails at the wetlands are.
Yes, but then we have neighborhood trails. I mean, I'm sure people bike on them, but they're multi-use trails. So I think classing it out that way is, I think that would be separate.
I think there's a big, I don't know. At some point, we're building the Vine Trail, we're opening up more trails, and at the same time, there's been this huge kind of explosion of electric bike capabilities, scooters that can go 50 miles. And I'm on the ATAC committee, and we've been looking at this in terms of potential conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists. I know some people have been hurt by electric bikes. We're trying to find out best practices. At some point, I'm thinking that's going to be an issue, but I'm not sure that anybody wants to look at it right now. So I don't know when that gets dealt with. Maybe after there's some accidents, it'll be easier to come to some consensus. We wait and see if there's a problem and then fix it. I don't know, but at some point, trail accessibility, I think, is going to be an issue. I would prefer to get out in front of it, look at best practices, maybe see if we have to come up with any guidelines or ordinances. But it's kind of a buzzsaw so the minute you start talking about asking anybody to slow down. So I don't know if that's something we're going to do or not. I just want to note that I think it's something that could be done and might be helpful to do before we have accidents. Politically speaking, though, it's tough.
Scott?
I think, yeah, leaving it separate is a good thing because it doesn't lock us into something. It gives us latitude to address anything that might come up pertaining to that. Whereas if it's actually in like a Newell management plan or bicycle plan, then we can get locked in. Whereas this is kind of somewhat open-ended and allows us to be able to address all kinds of different trails. So I think this is the best option for keeping us able to comment and to work on those things.
That's a good point, yeah.
I would vote to keep it in there.
Wait, did I miss, what do you mean you vote to keep it in there? Are we talking about removing that?
Well, it wasn't one of the ones that Director Aikita said that had to be in there. So, and Director Aikita asked us for some comments on this specifically, right?
Is that right?
So-
Okay, I missed that.
Correct. I didn't understand if you wanted to keep number 4 in the work plan or if you wanted to remove it. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh, I think we probably all want to keep that.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And maybe put bicycle-friendly community in the number 2 spot since that's postponed.
Great.
Nance?
Okay, so it seems to me like number 1, the new number 2, 10 bike-friendly community, and number 8 are the ones that are going to take the most amount of work. Am I right? The others are more one-time meetings or 2 times meetings. So
Yeah.
Can you repeat which ones those were again?
1, 2, and I called it number 10, which is bike sorry, you made numbered, bike-friendly committee. Okay, one, a Newell management plan, bike-friendly community, and sustainability. I think those are the ones that are gonna require a fair amount of thought on our part. So, is that too much for 1 year's plan, or are we setting the stage for multiple year plans, and maybe we're having maybe 3 meetings where we focus on one of them in depth so we can have a plan going forward?
I think this is when it would be helpful to have estimates of time and cost. Do you think that's something that we would have before we had the combined meeting with the council?
Yeah, so what I was gonna do is let's take this back, and then what we can do is we can have an updated meeting on June 7th, which is our next meeting, and we can finalize this draft, and hopefully I can have a better understanding of what the resources would look like to this plan, so that way we can be prepared for the council meeting on the 20th.
But also, yeah, a couple of us had brought up the resources in the beginning, but also, and Director Ikeda mentioned that these may be, you know, depending on where they are, design implementation could span a couple of years as well. So just because it is not something that can be completed in 1 year does not mean that it should be removed, because then it's always going to be removed. So it has to start somewhere. And so it just depends on the goals when we start looking at it, and understanding the resources now is how much we can actually get done when we start to dive into the specifics of these. And then that also informs the following year's work plan, because then we know where we are, and the council will also know where we are. And then that could increase funding and have time and lead time to be able to increase funding as needed as we start to look at these.
Yeah, another strategy is what we use with PCS work plan for this last year is we prioritized the work plan based off of like first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. To Scott, to your point of, you know, not one item is more important than the other, but really identifying, okay, what is our priority? What is our main initiative? What do we want to get done as a body this year? Like, where's our focus? If we're able to complete it, great. If not, then it can always roll over. So we can always prioritize it that way. Like if you say, okay, we know that the Newell management plan has been on our list for several years. We know we really want to focus on that this year. That's our main priority. We want to get this done. We can make that number one. And then, you know, with all the review and updates, that's going to come up when the projects come up. So that's going to be natural. It's going to be more natural when it's time for you to review and comment. So we'll have a sense of when that will happen, and we can prioritize that, again, based off of the work plan. But making those the 3 projects that you've identified that may require additional time or more time from this commission or for more staff time, we can prioritize based off of where we want to focus our efforts at in the beginning.
Can I ask a general plan? Are you considering applying for any grants? Are there initiatives that you feel are important as Parks Director that you're thinking be really, because I know Creighton, I think, applied for some grants. I mentioned Mark Joseph when he was city manager applied. Are there going to be times, or do you envision that where you'll come up and say, you know what, this would be really cool, and how would that process work?
Right now, I'm not interested in applying for additional grants. We have several projects identified for fiscal year 23-24 that we really need to focus on and get completed. Within Parks and Recreation, there's a lot. And adding to that without completing what we already have planned doesn't seem like the best approach. If something comes up for the future, I would be interested in that, but I really am focused on getting things that have already been planned that need to get planned. For instance, the playground replacement project, that's been long overdue. We need to get that completed. Hopefully we can get that done by this summer. The Outdoor Education Center, that was a grant that was applied for several years ago that has not been completed. We really want to get that done. And then there's additional, we have Measure AA that we're really focusing on with the wetlands restoration and possibly having a kayak launch and folding in with the Eco Center. So we have a lot of major initiatives that are involving our department that I really think that this community wants to see come to fruition before we start doing anything in addition to what we have already talked about trying to get done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more comments? Okay, so we have the addition of the bicycle-friendly community in addition to the proposed work plan. And there'll be some work in identifying staff time and cost before we talk about this in the combined meeting, right?
Can you please repeat that? I'm sorry, I was taking notes.
I just wanted to make sure that there'll be some estimates of staff time and cost, so we could help kind of weigh out, priorities when we meet with council.
Yeah, and then what I can do is I can try to rearrange it, and when I think it will happen as well, that can give you a sense and an idea of where we think it's going to happen in the year. And so we can really look at workload and where resources are going to be.
Yeah, that sounds helpful. Okay, anything else you need from us about that? Okay, moving on to management and staff reports. Number 1, Eco Center Community Meeting, May 30th.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my notes. Okay, so this is more of for your information as for this body. On May 30th, there is going to be a community meeting regarding the Eco Center, and which they are going to be launching their process for their use permit. And it will, at some point, that project will come to this body for review and comment. But right now, this is more of like a broader community approach. So it's a community meeting that's going to take place on May 30th. You're welcome to attend, but the application will eventually come to you if you're not able to attend. But we just wanted you to know that that is going to be taking place. It's a broader community approach of what's going to be happening at the Eco Center and what that permit process looks like. And then on...
Ellie, did you say what time?
I did not say the time. I did not know the time.
We don't know yet?
That was what my question was.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
I do not have the time. I just know the date at this point. I can find out the time for you, and I can email you guys. And then on June 16th, Spirit Horse, along with 4-H, is going to be hosting a fundraiser event. This is in partnership with the Rotary Club of Napa County, Rotary Club of Napa, and Napa County Office of Education. So again, it's just a fundraiser event to help support their initiatives. They're doing a lot of great things out there, and they have a donor who's interested in investing here in American Canyon, and we think it's a great opportunity to get some investment and possibly open it up to other opportunities that some of these people that may be interested, maybe the Eco Center or something else that's taking place in the city. So we just think it's a really great opportunity for you to know that this is going to be taking place here in American Canyon.
Was this something that the Parks Department started? They came to you, or?
No, they actually came straight to Spirit Horse, and they had somebody who was interested and saw what they were doing and really wants to donate and invest in their initiative and their cause. And so,
Is the Parks Department involved?
No.
no,
In no way. Okay.
no. This is outside funding source from the Rotary Club of Napa and Napa County Office of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody have any commissioner comments?
I do. I have a comment. In addition to that, on this Sunday, American Canyon Community and Parks Foundation is having their pollinator hike in Newell. And I would encourage people to go.
Do you know what time?
No, but it's on social media.
Okay.
I can find out.
Anybody else? I'd like to.
Wait, I've got something. Isn't there a bike rodeo on May 20th in the morning? Bike Fest?
Bike Fest, yeah. And also
At
Thursday.
Park 1, 9 to noon, right?
It's in the morning, and it's at Community Park 1, and I believe it starts either at 9 or 10, and it goes to about noon, and it's in partnership with the Napa Valley Bike Coalition. and with the City of American Canyon, some other partners. It's the same one that we always do every year, of teaching kids how to ride bikes safely throughout the community and how to put a helmet on correctly. And PD is going to be out there assisting with those initiatives and efforts. So come on down and support them. It's going to be a great event. And then also on May 18th is the Bike to Work and School Day. That is something that the Parks and Recreation Department helps with that initiative as well. And we are, as Kara was saying, we're looking for a secondary location because we used to be in front of the high school, and it looks like the school's going to be doing something. So we're looking for a secondary location to try to meet, to serve the community.
I mentioned that I thought the wetlands parking lot would be a good spot because it's close to the trail. It's where it connects to get to the Green Island Road if we're going to Napa, or people going this way too. When I bike to work, I see a lot of people out there in the morning, as opposed to the high school site. I don't think there's non-high schoolers around that area at that time.
I'm going to email to Kara because we did that at the Gaia a couple years ago, and they made cookies. They made oatmeal cookies to give out to everybody. So that was pretty cool. I remember snacks.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? Okay. All right, meeting adjourned at 7:48.
Thank you.